Have you ever heard of an Airbus A321 having more seats than a Boeing 787? Well, believe it or not, many ultra-low-cost airlines operate A321s with over 200 seats, including America's largest ULCC, Spirit Airlines. Today, we're flying on board Spirit's A321 from Atlanta back to Chicago, capping off a lengthy return itinerary from my recent trip to Dallas. It's just after 2 a.m. in Atlanta, and I just arrived on a 2-hour late Spirit A319 from Orlando, the subject of my previous video. Spirit and Frontier both operate from concourses D and E in Atlanta, but this is a pretty easy airport to connect through. Of course, at 2 a.m. the plane train doesn't need to run since there's barely anyone here. Luckily, if you don't want to take the train or when it's not in operation, there are underground walkways that connect the concourses as well, so you can walk through here. Initially, I was booked for a 6-hour layover in Atlanta, but because of my inbound flight's delay, it was reduced to 4 hours. Now, at this point, I can't remember the last time I got a proper good night's sleep, so I was really tempted to book a room at the Minute Suites. Unfortunately, they were asking somewhere around $110 for 2 hours, and I mean, I value a good sleep, but not so much that I'm gonna pay $110. So I decided to just head to my gate and get some rest on the floor because I always see other people doing that whenever they're stuck here on overnight layovers. My flight this morning is the 6 a.m. Spirit 1306 to Chicago O'Hare, departing alongside the 6 a.m. Frontier flight, which I took last year. It's always fun to see what aircraft are sitting overnight at the gates, and if you didn't know, Concourse E is also used by Delta for various flights. This A330-300 would be sitting here for quite a while as it wouldn't be departing until 10 p.m. that night for Sao Paulo, Brazil. There was a lot of space at the gate area, but the chairs clearly weren't good enough to sleep on, so I had to face the hard carpeted floor and got some on and off sleep until my plane finally pulled in. It's just after 3:20 a.m. and our aircraft is arriving from Chicago 2 hours late due to severe weather up in that area. Luckily, our flight back to Chicago isn't scheduled to depart until 6, so that delay doesn't impact us at all. This will be my first time flying on the Spirit A321, and after this flight, all that's left is to fly on Spirit's A321neo, and I'll have officially flown all of the aircraft types in the current Spirit fleet. This particular aircraft wore the special Dumbo movie paint scheme from March to June 2019. Because I had purchased a carry-on during online booking, I was assigned Group 1 for boarding. A general rule of thumb when flying budget airlines is always to buy your bags during booking because usually the gate agents check if you paid or not at the gate, and if you get caught, well, you're basically going broke. Spirit, being the ultra-low-cost airline that it is, crams 228 seats on its Airbus A321s with 8 big front seats and 220 in economy. Now, that's a lot, but this isn't actually the highest A321 configuration, as Frontier actually crams 240 in its A321neo that I flew last year. To put into perspective how tight that is, British Airways only has 214 seats in its Boeing 787-8, and United's high J767-300ERs have 167 seats. Seat selection on Spirit typically costs money, but because I purchased a $70 bundle with my ticket that included a carry-on, priority boarding, and standard seat selection, I was able to reserve seat 12A for free. The seats are nothing special, they're the usual budget airline style with okay padding and a basic shelf for a seat back, aside from a tray table and seat pocket that still had the previous passenger's boarding pass. The legroom is apparently 28 inches, but I don't know if I was just too tired to care or what, but even at 5 feet 11 inches, I wasn't really that bothered. Above the seats are the usual passenger service units that are free to use. As you can imagine, I slept through the entire flight without really acknowledging the service or really much else. Shortly after that beautiful sunrise, we began our descent into Chicago. I never thought about this before, but I've now flown 3 different airlines between Atlanta and Chicago, namely Delta, Frontier, and now Spirit. We descended over northwest Indiana and flew along the Lake Michigan shoreline before flying south of the airport on downwind, making a 180 and coming in for landing on runway 10 center. This flight was part of a one-way booking from Orlando to Chicago via Atlanta that cost just under $125. The basic airfare was about $55, but because I purchased a $70 bundle option during booking, that brought the price up. As I mentioned in my last video, Spirit was still the cheapest option even with the bundle included, so I was rather satisfied with the value for money. I will consider Spirit for future travel, but generally I will choose to avoid budget airlines until they are the absolute last option. Finally, I was back in Chicago and ready to head back to campus and class. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm not sure when I'll get some more trip reports out, but hopefully that'll be sometime soon. Until I see you in the next video, thank you very much for watching this one, and take care. Goodbye.